Welcome to the Muscle Expert Podcast with Ben Pakulski, one of the world's top professional bodybuilders, an expert on human performance and mindset mastery. Ben dives deep to deliver the strategies of the top experts to upgrade your body, mind, muscle, strength, performance, biochemistry, and how to become the upgraded modern man.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Muscle Expert Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Pakulski, and today we're going to interview Leanne Vogel. She's a massive influencer in the keto space, and she's got an absolutely incredible and inspiring story about how she found this lifestyle and the amazing lifestyle she lives now. You guys are going to love this conversation with Leanne. We get into some really, really applicable lifestyle habits and hacks to master the ketogenic lifestyle. It's pretty complicated life for some people trying to transition from, quote unquote, the normal diet, which is often carbohydrate dependent on fast food, dependent on things that are quick and convenient, to a ketogenic lifestyle, which we know to have massive advantages in certain aspects of life. And it's definitely not for everybody, but we do advocate that everyone at some point in their life should try ketogenic dieting, should become more fat adapted so that you can actually reap the benefits, whether it be psychological, whether it be reducing inflammation, whether it be improving insulin sensitivity. All these things are massive benefits that Leanne speaks about pretty transparently in this conversation. It's a really organic, fun conversation that just literally is Leanne leaving her RV of her travels all around the US and Canada and taking the time to talk to us today about how she's transitioned from being a vegan, how she's dealt with some eating disorders, and how she's going to now continue to lead a new amazing generation of men and women into this fat adapted lifestyle, and obviously how to still continue to incorporate other foods into your diet. It's a really great conversation. Leanne's got an awesome book called The Keto Diet, where she gives you a lot of insights into her recipes and how she strategically introduces carbohydrates either 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or every day, and still manages to stay in ketosis. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, let Leanne know because she's awesome and she wants to hear from you. Enjoy the show. Right before we get into this episode, guys, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors. So you guys know that sponsors are a very necessary part of podcast production. It allows us to bring an amazing podcast to you. It allows us to have amazing guests and really keep educating you guys. So today's podcast is brought to you by Thrive Market, a company I continue to get behind because they're doing an awesome job of bringing the best quality foods to you at a price that's substantially less than you're going to find in any grocery store. 25 to 40% less you're going to find in major grocery stores across the country. And they're going to ship it to you for free because they're awesome. So in today's podcast, Leanne Vogel and I talk a lot about ketogenic dieting and some of the unique products she uses to really stay keto adapted. Leanne talks a lot about lard, pork fat. She talks about beef tallow. She talks a little bit about duck fat, which I use all the time for myself and my kids. I usually cook my eggs in duck fat. Duck fats, all these fats have very unique benefits. And for someone on a ketogenic diet or someone looking to get fat adapted, these are very, very good sources of fat, particularly for having micronutrient profiles and also for getting additional saturated fats. And just animal fats in general are going to be great for improving hormone profiles. So if you're someone who is on a ketogenic diet or looking to get on a ketogenic diet, Thrive Market is an amazing place to source these fats. So the fats I get from Thrive now are ghee, duck fat, beef tallow, lard. I also get my coconut oil and my olive oil often from Thrive Market because, one, it's substantially cheaper, and to use this much fat does honestly get expensive. So if you guys want to check out Thrive Market, you can go to thrivemarket.com/muscleexpert, and they're going to hook you guys up 25% off your first order and a free 30-day membership, which gets you free shipping. So without further ado, our podcast with Leanne Vogel, and a huge shout out and thank you to Thrive Market. And thank you to you, because without you guys, this doesn't exist. And the podcast continues to grow every single month. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show with Leanne. I've got this amazing skill set that I had to acquire over the last 20 years out of sheer pain, right? Like I hated, I had a quote unquote troubled youth, and I wanted to build a body that I loved. I didn't like my life in my body. I didn't love my body. So I spent, so many hard years learning how to build my body. And now I got the skill set. I'm like, God, I'm really good at this. And I've overcome every problem that every man ever has to face. And now I believe I have responsibility to the human race to help men live a strong life in a body they love. That's kind of my thing, right? So this is how I came across the ketogenic diet. Is like, okay, I know I need to reduce inflammation. I know people are eating way too much sugar. I know grains are not doing anybody any good. So now let's go down the path of trying this ketogenic diet. Like I said, for 5 to 6 years, I've been eating basically a high fat, effectively zero carbohydrate diet, which included occasional sweet potatoes and berries as my only carbohydrate sources, which is like a paleo style diet. But now I found this keto, and then I found you as this amazing influencer in the keto space. So tell me about how you got started into keto.
Well, I was vegan and I went off hormonal birth control back in 2007 and I didn't get my period back. And that lasted a really long time. And I didn't really think much of it because a 20-something-year-old isn't thinking, let's get your period back. Like life was great without it.
Right.
And I became quite an avid runner. I started competing in triathlons. So I was running, swimming, biking every day, training. I started doing CrossFit. My days were usually wake up, train for 2 hours, usually a brick workout. Then at lunch, if I didn't run during my brick workout, I would run at lunch. And then after work, I would do CrossFit anywhere between 3 to 5 days a week. So I was crushing it and I was doing really
and no
well.
protein.
Pardon me?
That was when you're on vegan?
Yeah, that's when I was vegan and I was doing really well until I wasn't doing well anymore. And I just started gaining so much weight so fast.
Wow.
I started lashing out at my husband. I had these crazy mood swings. I had ADHD at the time. I had to keep upping my medication. It all just it's like I hit a brick wall and just all this stuff was falling down on me. So that was in that moment where I found the ketogenic diet. Thankfully, a friend had started keto and I was like, what's a keto? I've never heard of this before.
So the cookie or something?
Yeah, like, can I eat it?
Right.
And I read the 3 books out in the world at that point back in 2014. There wasn't a lot of information about the ketogenic diet other than in medical practices. So I read those 3 books and I said, what's the worst that can happen? And really in the background, I wanted to regulate my hormones only because I knew that that's what was stopping me from training harder and better and faster. And so I went on this quest to eat keto for 30 days to see if I could regulate my hormones and start losing weight so that I could train and continue to build muscle. Because I just stopped, like all my muscle was turning into fat. Like it was just my body fat percentage was going up and I was really frustrated. And after those 30 days, I lost 20 pounds, 12% body fat.
Wow.
I've been off my ADHD medication. And I was like, I'm not going back.
Hell
and
no.
That was 4 years ago.
Now, did you ever find out what if there was a cause other than the obvious, like if there was one particular cause that was leading to the weight gain and the ADHD?
I think it's hard to pinpoint exactly one cause. I think it was a perfect storm of training too much, not eating the right things, and ignoring my hormone problem for a really long time. When I went off hormonal birth control, I should have healed my body. I should have looked at that and eaten a lot and, looked at what I was eating, how I was eating it, what my body actually wanted. Like as a vegan, I dreamt about chicken almost every night. I had dreams of chickens, eating chicken. Like I just couldn't stop thinking about chicken for years. Like I really should have listened to that and I didn't. Like I would think about chicken. I would smell chicken when I was cooking like anything. I would just smell chicken instead of the food I was making. And so like those little signs that I ignored for so many years, I think just didn't help the situation. But I would say if I could do it all over again, I would definitely have listened a lot sooner and not worked out to that extreme, knowing that my body couldn't handle it at that point. Whereas now I am so much stronger than I am now than before.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So why do you think so many humans, yourself, myself included, become so single-mindedly focused on this one belief system? Like, why would somebody be so why were you, I guess more accurately, so attached to veganism that you didn't see the signs?
I think a lot of it has to do with the culture we put around it. Like, I think if those things would have happened in the first 6 months of me being vegan, I would have been like, oh yeah, this isn't working for me. But I moved into an apartment building because there were other vegans that lived there. Like, vegan was my life. All my friends were vegan.
Yeah.
We chatted about animal rights all the time, and we like cooked vegan food together. And I had a subscription to this vegan magazine. I can't even remember what it was called. But like, it just.
So let me interrupt that quickly. So was your choice to be vegan for health or moral reasons?
Well, my original choice was I moved out of my house when I was 16 and I was broke and putting myself through high school with also a full-time job, and I just didn't have the money to eat meat. That was the original reason.
Yep.
And then as time went on and I started meeting vegans and being friends with vegans, and it just became my life. And then I started caring a lot about animals, and I got rid of all the leather that I owned, and I stopped brushing my teeth with certain toothpastes, and I got really into it. Yeah, so it's hard when you when that becomes your identity. It's hard to imagine your life as anything else, and it becomes so ego driven that you can't see what's right in front of you.
Very interesting. And, ultimately we all form a lot of our decisions based around the people around us. And when you choose to surround those people, that becomes your worldview, right? Like all these people you're all talking the same language, you all believe the same things, and you're just perpetuating this, what potentially could be dangerous, which ended up being dangerous for you, this belief system that, that's just how humans work, right? Our worldview is determined and dictated by the people we surround ourselves with. And, it's a very important thing to realize, like even in the keto space now. So that transitioning that question, are you keto all the time, or do you still think about,
No.
So you're okay. Tell me about it.
So the first 6 months of me eating keto, it was very, very strict. And I have a history of an eating disorder. So when I wasn't being strict, I was binging and purging on all of the things. And that maybe happened every 2 weeks, to the point at the end of the 6 months, I couldn't go 1 hour without binging and purging because I was so restricted and in such a bad place. I was losing my hair. I had pins and needles everywhere. My electrolytes were fine. I was getting IVs. I was trying to figure it out. And when something you've done is working, like I've gone off my ADHD medications, my training is so much better, but I'm massively struggling mentally, it can be hard, like we said, to make that transition. The big light bulb moment for me was when I was watching my husband eat an Oreo cookie, and I couldn't stop watching him. Like, I just couldn't stop hearing it and seeing it and smelling it and watching the crumbs fall from his mouth. And I was like, I have a problem. And so I ended up doing a lot of research, learning about cyclical ketosis. And I said, okay, so for 1 year, I'm going to give myself 1 year. I'm going to try to merge keto with holistic nutrition, which is what I went to school for, to make this whole food keto approach where every night I have a touch of carbohydrates. So like you said, sweet potatoes, berries, I liked cassava, that sort of thing. And then I would eat keto all day, and I would have carbs in the evening. And we're not talking about a lot of carbs. It's like half an apple sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling. But when you're fat adapted and you do those things, it's laughable how well your body's able to stay in a state of ketosis, even though you're eating those carbs. Like even at lunchtime, I can have a sweet potato and my ketones can be at like 2.3, and I eat the sweet potato, they dip down to 1.8, and by dinner, they're back at 2.3 again.
Interesting. So I'm living the same reality, right? So I am seeing, like I said, my objective being muscle building. I'm seeing, well, how much protein can I get away with, and how much carbs can I get away with? And then I literally will notice that I can eat, I'm a big guy, but I can eat up to 150 grams of carbohydrates at one sitting and still be back in ketosis by the next morning when I wake up, which is pretty awesome, right? And like, okay, I mean, well, all that says to me is, okay, your body's storing all this carbohydrate and really, really good at bringing your blood sugar back down and getting back into this metabolic flexible state that this is what we're striving for anyways, right? And the big misconception, I think, in the ketogenic world is, well, you have to be in ketosis all the time. And well, why, right? Yes. What's the reason? Well, I don't know. Like people don't know, because if you're eating a tremendous amount of fat, your body's not burning your own fat. So you don't necessarily need to be in ketosis. You just want to always have the ability to use fats as fuel so your body doesn't store them. That's really what people need to get in their head, right? Is like, why do you really want to be in ketosis? So that when I'm at rest, my body continues to burn stored fat rather than burning muscle or glycogen. It's kind of what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. And there's also the piece of ketones being super therapeutic. Yeah. Like super therapeutic. So I'm even thinking, there are times like when I'm on a book tour, I like to be in ketosis the whole time. Like I need to be on point. I don't need to be eating a lot. I just want to like eat one meal a day and have a lot of ketones pumping through my brain. But other times you're totally right. And that's a huge misconception. It's actually super dangerous because people push themselves into this corner of like, but I need to be keto all the time. And their body's yelling at them like, you need to have carbs or you need to adjust this or that and the other thing. And they just don't listen.
Yeah, that's one thing that really drew me to you and your conversation was that it's not just about, so the big issue that I see with a lot of people is they're like, oh, I'm keto. I can eat this. I can eat that. And they're eating such junk food, but remaining in ketosis. And they're almost trying to see how much can I get away with how much junk food can I eat and still stay in ketosis. And I love the fact that you're the person leading the conversation around food quality, right? Like what you eat matters just as much as, staying ketosis. And, you talked a lot about just making the right food choices. Talk something about the misconceptions that people have around ketosis and food.
Oh man. One of the,
well, did you notice that with yourself when you started that did you try to kind of push the envelope with whatever, see what much you can get away with and making poor food choices and perhaps noticing a difference in how you felt?
I don't think it was how much can I get away with. That came later. It was, I have this little box that I need to fit in and I can't go outside of the box. Otherwise I'm doing it wrong. And so mine wasn't pushing the boundaries at all. Mine was like, okay, as a ketogenic person, I need to eat dairy, even though I'm allergic to dairy. I started eating dairy again. So I was eating butter and cheese and I was like reacting. I had really bad acne and I was always itchy. So that was a huge misconception of like, you need to eat dairy on keto. And the other one is now that I'm keto, I need to fast every single day. And it needs to be at least 18 hours. So even though I was hungry on certain days, I would be like, nope, I'm fasting. And I would push through that pain, like intense hunger pain, because I was fasting. Another misconception that I struggled with initially was fasted workouts. So you read all about these fasted workouts. So I was doing heavy, intense training and then not eating until 3 p.m. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges because that set me back quite a lot in muscle building and something I would never ever do again with the types of workouts that I was doing. And another big misconception is like, if I have 10 more grams of broccoli on my plate, it's going to kick me out of ketosis because I'll go over my carbohydrate amount. If I have 21 grams of carbs, no bueno, can't do it.
Right.
And same with protein, like gluconeogenesis, scary boogeyman, can't even experience it. I'm going to make sure like if moderate protein keeps me in ketosis, low protein will be even better. It's like I removed my nutrition brain from my body during the first 6 months and just completely forgot everything to do with nutrition. And over time, I learned that gluconeogenesis isn't the scary boogeyman and you don't need to fear it as much as we've been told. And so now I push the boundaries a lot. But when I first started and what I see so many people doing is they get paralyzed in this keto box and it stops them from realizing this life like just on the other side, just this one little tweak, this misconception that they have that's not true for their body. So I would say like I was in a box, not pushing the level. And I think people that maybe food quality isn't their number one goal, it's probably that they're not conscious to what they're doing. Like, I think oftentimes people just do what they're told and they don't think like for a moment of like, wait, so if I have sour cream with like melted cheese on top and then I take Parmesan crisps and I dip that into that dip, that's all dairy and it's probably pretty inflammatory. Should I be eating this? Like, there's just none of that.
But I'm still in ketosis, so I'm okay, right? And this is the big issue you run into. It's like, no, man, like your body still needs micronutrients.
Yes. Yeah. And variety. And if you can handle carbohydrates and you can handle vegetables and your gut's not distended because of it, like, eat them, have fiber, like, don't worry about it. But that's what really fired me up after those first 6 months, being led down a very terrible path of hating ketosis. And if I wouldn't have been nutritionally trained, I would have given up. And then I never would have experienced the life that I have now. And so that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message of like, just wait a minute. Let's educate yourself so that you can make choices to better your own body, yourself, and you're empowered to make those changes because you understand what's happening in your body.
I love the way you're using ketosis now. And that's effectively the way that I've come to use ketosis as well. If I've got podcasts, if I've got talks, if I've got seminars, I'm always going to try to have my brain somewhat keto adapted, because you just realize, like, my mental clarity is amazing. And as soon as I put in a little too much protein or a little too much carbohydrates, I actually do notice a small difference, but it's a difference. And if I want to be completely on point, that's the time when I want to use ketosis. I think there's obviously the therapeutic benefits, the cancer benefits, the brain healing benefits. All those things are things I think almost every human being on the planet should incorporate into their lifestyle at some point. But again, I love the idea of just, hey, man, I want to eat an apple. Okay, go eat an apple. It's okay.
Just do it.
You rebel, right? You rebel. You can do it. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And like, if I want to, I'll tell you a secret. Nobody knows about this. My infatuation, or the way that I cheat on my ketogenic diet, I don't cheat, but like if I'm wanting carbohydrates, it's frozen bananas. I eat frozen bananas. I'm a rebel. I know.
Danger.
Yeah, that's my thing.
I'm glad you got that off your chest.
I feel so much better about myself now. I've been hiding this deep, dark secret for a long time, Leanne. I got to tell you, and I'm very grateful that you empowered me to let it out. But that's it. Like, if I'm like, I always have frozen bananas in my freezer. And so I climbed a mountain in Northern California a couple weeks back, and I got off the mountain and everyone goes, "What are you going to eat? Are you going to eat some carbs?" And I had 4 frozen bananas. I was hardcore. I felt good about myself. Anyways, all joking aside, tell me about some of your evolved thought processes now around how you're teaching people to start the adaptation. So you get so many people who are breaking into this ketogenic world where, like, you're the first person they're going to find, a lot of them, right? Because you're very prevalent. You're very, there's a lot of eyeballs. If someone's new to ketogenic dieting, how do you recommend they start transitioning their life into using, or I guess truly benefiting from the benefits, or from the benefits of ketogenic dieting?
It's so funny you asked that question, because I've been focused so on helping people that have already found keto in other places and it like totally broke them, or they're totally lost. And then they come to Healthful Pursuit and they're like, oh, so we were having a meeting about this, the whole team and I, just yesterday, about like, wait, do we even help beginners at this point? And it's funny because it's like, no, like we don't have a lot of beginner content other than the program that I wrote back in 2014 called The Keto Beginning. And that was a program that I created because I had done 30 days of keto and I was down all that weight and everything changed. And so I wrote that. But I think some general guidelines of how to start keto that I wish I would have done is knowing that I understood paleo and I came from a plant-based approach. I would have just set the intention for the first 2 weeks to eat low carb, high fat. So for 2 weeks, I'm just understanding what's a carb, what's a fat, what's a protein, how does it all work together? How do I shift my pantry, my fridge over to more fat, less carbs? And, I think so often we just want to go from 0 to 60 in 1.5 seconds. And we need to understand that if we want this to be a lifestyle change and we want it to be a lasting thing, doing it that fast is only going to result in a car accident. Like, it's just going to blow up in your face because you cannot keep up with that speed. So I would say the first 2 weeks, understanding what's a carb, what's a protein, what's a fat, and just setting the intention to eat lower carb. Like if you eat I don't know, potatoes every night with dinner. Can you switch it out to carrots? Okay, now that you've done the carrot thing, what about radishes? They're lower in carbohydrate. Okay, you've done radishes. What about broccoli? Can you cook broccoli the same as radishes? How does that work? And just all those things that come along with just educating yourself and your food choices. That education of food choices is so important, because when you get 2 months down the road and you're sitting at a restaurant and you're looking at this menu, like, I have no idea what food is what. Like, is a radish lower carb than a carrot? I don't know. So to educate yourself at the very get-go of what foods have certain carbohydrates or not, you'll be well equipped to deal with life stuff later down in the road. And I think the other point is, don't make the mistake that I did and say, I'm keto, now I'm fasting. Just allow fasting to come naturally. So, these first 2 weeks, you're learning about what a carb is, what a fat is, what a protein is. And maybe you already know, but maybe just setting that intention is like, oh my gosh, I eat a lot of carbohydrates in a day. So you do those first 2 weeks, and then you're like, okay, maybe I'm going to track things and kind of see where I'm at, see how I can bump up my fat more. And then you get to a point where you could maybe start fasting and you're not hungry in the morning. So maybe you go your first breakfast without eating. You're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And you go until 11 o'clock till you're hungry. But then the next day you wake up hungry. So have breakfast. But maybe at dinner time, you're not hungry for dinner. Skip it and just play around with that and use your hunger as a guide. I think those are things that I wish I would have done and I didn't do. And it would have set me up for so much more success at the very beginning than waiting 6 months into it.
There's so much beauty in that, right? And just paying attention to yourself. And so many people are so attached to this. I have to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or I have to eat 6 meals a day, or whatever they're attached to, and with mindless actions, mindless habits. And one of the things you said there that was really brilliant was the reality that when you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, transitioning to a high fat diet, your body isn't very good at eating fats yet, right? Your body isn't very good at burning fat. So when you remove carbohydrate, you're going to feel like crap. So a slow transition makes so much more sense. And then for someone who's new, and a lot of people are actually advocating fasting for people who are new to get into ketosis faster. Does that make sense? Theoretically, yes, but you're going to feel like crap because your body doesn't use fat for fuel. So you're going to feel terrible. You're going to be extra hungry. You're going to be extra hangry, right? You're going to have the anger. Yeah, and it doesn't make sense. So you have to actually allow that transitional period. And I usually tell people to take 4 weeks. I'm like, take your time. Yeah. Like, you're not in a rush. Ultimately, you're going to have amazing benefits from being fat adapted, but don't rush because you're going to hate it. You're going to hate your life. You're going to be angry. You're not going to sleep very well. You're going to have headaches. Let your body transition toward being fat adapted and actually benefit from all these amazing benefits from a ketogenic diet.
I totally agree with you, because otherwise you'll be like, oop, I ate keto for breakfast, but then I had a sandwich, and it happens over and over and over and over and over again because we're just going too fast, and we might not be going keto for the right reasons. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've met somebody that's like, I tried keto. I lasted 2 days. It's just not sustainable. I said, well, why did you start keto? And they're like, well, my friend told me it was awesome. Okay, well, so when you deal with a difficult thing, if all you're thinking is, well, this is awesome, it's not going to sustain you. So understand why you want to do keto. Like, why did this entice you? Is it because you want to play with your grandkids? Or you want to be able to help your kids who just had a child and you need to be caring for them, or if you want to run a marathon, or you want to have more time on your hands not preparing your food. That was a big motivator to me of why I wanted to stay keto, of like, I have all this time now that I'm not thinking about food. I'm not talking about food. I'm not making food. I'm not willing to go back to eating carbs. So it depends on what your reason is.
I think the beauty there is that with carbohydrates, a lot of times people have to eat every 3 hours. Otherwise, the blood sugar dips and they feel crappy. When you're fat adapted, hey, now I can go 6 hours. Now I can go 8 hours. And I actually feel pretty good because my body's running on this amazing fuel. That's exactly the beauty, right? Like, I like to fast. I feel really good. My brain works. And I don't have to just be constantly running to the kitchen. So for someone like yourself who's traveling, or an entrepreneur, or someone who has a busy lifestyle, being keto adapted is so awesome because I don't have to rush to go like, hey, it's 3 hours later, or I don't feel like I'm going to die or want to kill somebody because I'm Right? We've both been there at some point. Yeah. Like, I need to eat that food now. And that's a really strong reality. And I think we need to point out to people is if you do feel that way, that's a very good indication your body isn't very metabolically flexible. It isn't using fat very well for fuel. Hey, you need to be considerate of, hey, just start maybe shifting a little bit. And it's a cool reality that you can shift in either direction at any one time you choose. If you want to just use more carbs for fuel because you're doing some more exercise, well, then just eat more carbohydrates. And if you're doing less exercise, we'll just use a little bit less.
Yeah. And even you can use carbohydrates to heal your body. Like if you have a thyroid imbalance, it's really good for that. If you have amenorrhea, lack of period, you can also use them. So you can also use them to your benefit to heal your body too with a ketogenic diet and cycling in and cycling out. It's pretty fun stuff.
Are there any special considerations you found for women on a ketogenic diet? So obviously I don't have that perspective. And, for men, I don't feel there's a lot. I mean, it's like, eat some meat, eat some protein. Your body's going to work pretty well. Your sex drive is probably going to get better. Your testosterone's going to go up. The only consideration for men, I think, is not overdoing saturated fat, because that's going to potentially lead to, for some people, heart disease if you're not taking in enough polyphenols. We know that. But any considerations for women as far as optimizing health, optimizing those female functions that you have found personally?
It's interesting because with most women, other than the ones that have that genetic disposition to not being able to process saturated fat, I say like eat as much saturated fat as humanly possible. Yeah. Because especially if you, I deal with a lot of women that are coming to keto because their hormones are wrecked. They can't lose weight anymore because their hormones are wrecked. And they just come to me so metabolically inefficient and broken. And I hate using the word broken because it's not like your body is broken. You're fine just the way you are, but just like your body needs love and healing. And for women, I find especially by having that saturated fat, bumping up your cholesterol, which is a precursor for all your hormones, and getting it in a place where you're creating these hormones and you are lowering your load of insulin requirements so that your progesterone doesn't fire as much and your cortisol isn't being controlled by your insulin upswings and downswings and having too much blood sugar. So for us, it's a little bit more complicated because we live on a 28-day hormone cycle. You guys live on a 24-hour hormone cycle. So your yesterday is the same as today, which is tomorrow. So I'm on cycle day 17. And so I'm just about ready to get my period. So I need to know that I'm probably going to need more carbohydrates probably tomorrow so that I can drive down that estrogen because my progesterone is on the upswing. And so I need to be thinking about so much more about how to align my macros to support those hormones that are, always ebbing and flowing. So I like the challenge, but some women get pretty frustrated.
It's overwhelming. Tell me about that. 'Cause I think just lack of knowledge. Like, I don't know that. Why do I need to eat more carbohydrates on day 17?
Yeah. So
or a woman.
Yeah, exactly. I was pretending you were a woman right there. So we're good. So when we, so the hormone cycle for women is 0 to 28 days. Now that could be 24 days, 32 days. It really depends on your cycle. But what happens when you eat carbohydrates is your body actually pushes down. So insulin drives estrogen down. So when you're having insulin spike up, your estrogen's going down, and you want your estrogen to kind of dip down on days 18, 19, 20, so that you can have an optimal period. And I'm talking about this from a perspective of somebody who has hormone dysregulation.
Yep. So
right before, and it depends when you ovulate, but right before I ovulate, I set a little reminder on my phone to eat carbohydrates. And I find that if I structure my eating plan from day 1 of my period to day 18, 19, if that's higher carb than day 20 to 28, I usually have a better cycle than swapping it rather. So it will really depend on your personal cycle, where your hormones are at. If you are progesterone dominant and estrogen is lower, then your eating style will change. My biggest rule of thumb is if your hormones are really, really, really high, strict keto is probably the best approach. Like just eat keto as a woman, you'll do great. But if your hormones are really, really low, say your progesterone is low, your estrogen is low, using carbohydrates on the ketogenic diet to manipulate those hormones is amazing. And I just put little timers, reminders rather, on my phone. I use an app called Life, and it just tracks my cycles. And I put like days 13 to 22 is when I'm going to be high progesterone. So my skin is probably going to be awesome. So if I need to do interviews or something like that, like those are the days to do it because I look all glowy and
that's amazing.
And so yeah, just knowing that about yourself. I mean, I think it's a superpower and something that women really need to embrace is the fact that we have these hormones that do all these crazy, awesome things. So to answer your question, insulin will drive down estrogen. And depending on where you are with your estrogen, you can time your carbohydrates properly to that. Generally speaking, it's the first part of your cycle, but some women find that driving down that estrogen later in their cycle is actually helpful. Just know that blood sugar management helps you have a better period. So you're not going to deal with as much PMS. Cramping is a big one, headaches. So if you have, say, all the sugary treats, you're probably going to notice that your period sucks and all the worst PMS. But if you stick to like sweet potatoes, berries, apples during your carb ups, you'll probably have a better time.
Wonderful information. So one thing I gathered from all that stuff you just said right there is you're very, very able to control your eating. So you're during this time I'm having these carbohydrates and this time I'm not having any carbohydrates. So there's no emotional eating. I'm going to guess at some point, based on the fact you said you had eating disorders, that there at some point was emotional eating.
Oh, huge, ginormous, huge.
Okay. How did you start to overcome that?
Oh, well, I was diagnosed with anorexia when I was 8. And I was a dancer, and that was just something we all did. Like it was very normal. And I used my body as a currency for a really long time, meaning I thought that I was just a body. And in order to show up in the world, I needed to manipulate that body to show and prove my worth. And that continued as I competed and, did CrossFit. I always had to be the best with the most muscles and all the things. And that was just, my body is the thing that people love about me. They talk about it. Like that is all that I have to provide to the world. And that continued even, like I said, when I was eating keto, that first year of eating keto, I was still very much bulimic. I didn't talk about it at all. In fact, I don't know if I've ever written a blog post on Healthful Pursuit about it. I'm quite vocal about eating disorder stuff when I'm on my podcast or chatting on YouTube or on stage now. But when I started eating keto and I was really restrictive, it definitely made it a lot worse. But when I embraced the fact that you didn't have to be so scared of all these macros that do all these bad things, and all I had to do was set the intention to eat low carb, high fat, fats changed my brain. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. I've chatted with a bunch of other women that had eating disorders and went keto and embraced more of like, I'm just going to set the intention to eat low carb, high fat. And something shifted about a year in where all of a sudden I just started thinking clearly for the first time ever, like wow. About my body, about my worth, about what I brought to the world. And I stopped. A lot of therapists would say there's no way, a psychiatrist would probably think that's not possible. And I had been through so many treatments for the eating disorder. It was, I could tell you crazy stories about what they do in these treatment centers, but everyone said that this wasn't possible, that I'd never live a life without an eating disorder. And it would always be right back there, like about to rear its ugly head. And I've been free of it for almost 3 years. And not even like, I don't even think about it. I definitely have my days, right. But the fats changed my brain. They changed my emotions. They changed my hormones. It's crazy.
It's I'm sure definitely the fats, but no. So speaking about the gentleman we talked about when we began our conversation, Rick Hansen, he's a psychologist and, brilliant neurophysiology expert, talking about now you've given yourself something to walk toward to. So you've given, like, this is what I do. So now I do a low carb, high fat diet. So now you're telling yourself I do that rather than I don't do this. So most people frame their food around, I don't like myself, I have to lose fat, or I don't eat, I shouldn't eat Oreos, and I shouldn't eat pizza, and I shouldn't eat all these things. And they're, when you say I shouldn't something, if I say Oreo, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Don't eat Oreos. First thing you're thinking about is an Oreo, right? Well, first thing you're thinking about is an Oreo. So rather than saying, these are all things I shouldn't eat, you're doing, hey, this is what I do eat. So you've given yourself a frame that's going towards something rather than going away from something. And I think that is a very powerful psychological trick in itself, is you give someone a framework of like, hey, I only eat these foods, or I prefer to eat these foods. It's so much more powerful for your brain to go toward a positive reinforcement than away from a negative one. And I think there's a huge aspect to your success that is, ultimately your brain determines everything, right? And if you can train your brain to create habits around positive reinforcements rather than avoiding negative ones, there's a huge opportunity to be had there for many of the listeners.
Yeah, I love that you said that. My whole thing is like, I choose to eat this way, but I can eat anything. I just choose to eat this way because it makes me feel good and I want to feel good. And there are definitely days where, my birthday, I ate an entire gluten-free pizza plus half a birthday cake in the span of 24 hours. And it was great. My sister was visiting. We had friends. It was awesome. But it was a choice that I made, knowing that I'm not going to feel good. I'm probably going to have a headache, and it's a choice. But before it was like, I can't have this. These foods are bad, and I would be bad if I ate them. So you're totally right. It's a totally reframing of how you look at food in your body.
Awesome. Tell me about your protein intake now, because I wonder how protein is influencing your mood and your blood sugar and all these other things.
I go through swings. Like, I find I get so hungry for protein at the end of my cycle. Oh my gosh, I could just eat steak every day, all day. And that will probably last like 5 days. And then there are other times where I can't even stomach like the look of meat sometimes. And so I just roll with it. When I first started, when I really wanted to heal my hormones and get to a place where I was ovulating and menstruating and all the eightings, I could not eat enough protein. Like, didn't matter what the day was. I could pound 2 pounds of ground beef a day. Easy, like easy. But now I find I don't really like beef as much, and I really like chicken. I would say on an average day, I'm eating anywhere, like when I'm eating animal protein, it's like, I don't know, 75 to 120 grams of protein. I'm really lucky in that I can pretty much eat as much protein as I want. It doesn't affect my ketones at all. So that's totally fine. It just ebbs and flows. If there's days where I'm not eating a ton of protein, it's usually that fat is replaced by that. But I also went through a period of time a couple of months ago when I was really stressed out and working on a bunch of stuff where I couldn't stomach fat. And that lasted like 2 weeks, and I was terrified.
Really?
I don't know what happened. I couldn't even think about fat. And that's the first time that it's happened on keto, where like 2 weeks I was like, nope, I'm just doing the low carb thing. I'm not eating fat. It hasn't happened again. But I think we all have these urges and these ebbs and flows of what we need. And oftentimes we just don't listen. So when I am eating animal protein, which is pretty often, my protein amount is anywhere, between 70 to 120 grams, if I had to guess. And I really love chicken and fish right now, which is so weird because I hated fish a year ago.
Huh. Well, I love that you listen to your body. Tell me about your primary sources of fat.
So we live in an RV full time, and that makes it really challenging to like render your own fat. So when I'm anywhere where I can order rendered fat from Thrive Market, I order all the things, and I love pork lard. Like, that stuff is pure magic. Beef tallow. is also a big favorite. I'll cook with coconut oil sometimes, but I'm kind of over it. I just can't eat.
How do you cook? Do you guys have a kitchen in the RV?
Yeah, we have one burner and no oven. So you have to get very creative. I cooked a lot.
I don't use an oven.
No?
I don't use an oven. You know what you need? Do you have a new wave oven? Actually, I use the super wave oven. Have you heard of the super wave oven?
That sounds like it requires a lot of power.
No. It's like a little countertop infrared oven that cooks everything amazingly well. It's glass. The new wave is plastic. The super wave is glass. So I'm an advocate against everything plastic. Super wave is glass and it's small, but you could cook like a whole chicken in it, would be an example of about the size. But it's literally the greatest invention on the planet. I'm not exaggerating. I advocate I have no affiliation with this company whatsoever. I advocate every single human being needs one of these. Anyone who's ever bought one has called me and said, "Oh my God, thank you. It changed my life. You'll never need an oven again." You can cook a pizza on there and it'll be the best pizza you've ever had. You could cook I will cook fish. Like when I was prepping for a contest, I would cook fish and it would almost be like golden crispy on the outside and warm and flaky on the inside. And it was like deep fried, but it's heaven. I'm telling you, I cook all my chicken on there.
Okay, I'm going to look it up.
All my meat on there. It's the greatest thing. It's honestly, it's fantastic. And if Super Wave, if you're listening, I need to get hooked up.
Yeah, no kidding. He needs to be an affiliate.
No need. No, but honestly, get on Amazon, and it'll be the best $110 you've ever spent in your life.
Amazing. I do have an Instapot, and I love those. I have amazing. A Vitamix blender that I never ever use. So if anyone wants it, I'm in Oregon right now.
If it was glass, I would be all over it's plastic. So I'm trying to avoid it.
Me too. And you also have to pay attention to the power. Like maybe nobody listening lives in an RV, but when you live in an RV and you don't have power, you cook with the sun. So when it's sunny, I put the Instant Pot on. When it's not sunny, I end up using propane or, eat something that's not cooked. So it definitely changes when you live in a very small space, but we're able to eat very similarly to when we lived at home and less dishes because we don't own a lot of dishes.
So I'm going to give another plug for the super wave. Chicken that would, if you like baked in the oven, would be 30 minutes, right? Like minimum 30, maybe 40. The same chicken, you put a chicken breast on there, it's done in 11 minutes, and it's like the most amazing chicken you've ever had in your entire life. I promise.
What the heck?
I promise.
Okay.
It's the great.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you should do it. I'm telling you, I love this thing. And, so much that we're on our third one now because we use it so much we burn it out. Each one lasts like 18 months, like about 18 months of regular daily use. Yeah, you get it. Super wave.
Okay. It's on the list of things to do.
All right. So traveling is a big thing for keto, right? And actually one of the reasons why I started to pay attention to ketogenic diet, because I found that eating healthy carbohydrates on the road is next to impossible. So as a bodybuilder, I was always like, okay, I'm eating high protein, high carb, because I'm training all the time. But I found finding good sources of carbohydrates on the road is effectively impossible, right? Like unless you're bringing oatmeal and white rice with you, it's impossible. So I started leaning toward, okay, what can I eat on the road that's healthy, quote unquote healthy, whole foods. Ketogenic diet just made so much sense. You can get butter everywhere, you can get bacon everywhere, you can get meat everywhere, but you can't always get these good carbohydrates. So that's kind of when it came onto my radar for the first time. Again, that was 5 years ago. You're traveling a lot, obviously preparing some of your foods. Tell me about some of the road hacks.
I have a bento box. It's on that table right there. It's a Take Naka. I don't know. I got it on Amazon and it has all these different compartments. So anytime I'm doing like a day trip, I pack that full of whatever, like snacks. Today I had macadamia nuts and bacon bits with sauerkraut and chicken and a bunch of lard.
Really?
And so if I'm anywhere, just dollop of lard and just microwave that. And so when I'm in a hotel like this and it's just one day, I will, I'll usually fast all day until like, I don't know, 3:00-ish or whenever I have a break or I'm hungry. And then I'll use that. So if you can pack your own stuff, it's super simple. But when you're flying, my favorite thing to do when I'm flying is I have a Yeti mug, which I carry everywhere with me. It's just like a stainless steel water bottle. And when I'm at the airport, I put all of my fat powders into a little pack. So I have MCT oil powder, C8, MCT oil powder. I put exogenous ketones in there, some vanilla, and some collagen. And as soon as I get through security, I will either just find some water or some hot water or decaf coffee, and I'll shake it up and I'll drink that when I'm flying. I do a lot of fasting when I'm traveling, like a lot of fasting when I'm traveling.
That makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, because your digestion also gets disrupted when you travel. Most people don't know that, right? And your microbiome is disrupted, your digestion is disrupted. So it's a really good idea.
Yeah, so I'll do that. And then my favorite everyday restaurants that I go to frequently when I'm traveling, and don't cringe, it just works. Red Robin, it's great. Their burgers are awesome, and their salt is actual real salt, so I really like that. Chili's, their ribs, you can get it without barbecue sauce. It's just salt and pepper and ribs. With steamed broccoli, and I carry olive oil packets with me in my purse. Like I have at least 10 at all times, so I just slather it all in olive oil.
Yeah. Do you get it from that Greek company that I forget what it's called, but
Casandrinos?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. They have great packets. I took a bunch at Expo West last year, and I travel with them all the time. Even salad dressing packets, I pick those up at Costco all the time. That just have a base of like olive oil, lemon, salt, and pepper. So I think it's relatively easy. I think people make it to be so much bigger than it needs to be. I mean, I've never struggled with the traveling bit. It's like just fast all the time. And if you're hungry, go to a restaurant and see what's on the menu and pick and choose from what you want. And also if there are no restaurants available, I have been known to just go to Walmart and pick up a bunch of random foods and just eat in the car. Like prosciutto is a big one. Avocado, like wrapping avocado with prosciutto, jerky, Duke's sausages. So you make do with what you can find.
Awesome. Talking about your morning routine. So you live in an RV. I'm very curious how you get up. Like, is it you just get up and work, or are you getting up? Are you doing something exercise wise? Like, obviously you're staying very fit and very active.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you're doing. Cause I mean, I aspire to live the RV life. I'm going to be honest. It's the other secret that you don't know about me. The bananas in the RV.
It changes all the time. That's what I think has been such a struggle. It took me a long time to like build up my own morning routine and stick to that, because you're always in a different place. There's always different things going on. So you have to just be like, no, this is what I'm doing. I don't care. So every morning I wake up, like we have 3 dogs. I have a husband that I have to like crawl over to get out of bed. And I try to wake up early enough before anyone's awake. I grab my yoga mat and I go outside. I usually keep my clothes near the door, and I'll just like put on my clothes and go outside. If I'm in the woods, I've started doing yoga naked, which I recommend everyone try. If there's nobody around, it is the best thing ever. And I totally love it. So if I don't need clothes, I won't wear clothes, and I'll do yoga for anywhere between an hour and an hour and a half, depending how much time I have. And then I'll go inside and usually like brush my teeth, take my thyroid medication. And then my husband and I will usually sit down, start talking about work stuff and things that need to get done. We'll both have our fatty coffees, and then we'll usually work for a bit. And then almost every day we're going for a hike. We have a Doberman who needs like a lot of activity, and not just like chasing a ball, but like running up mountains multiple times a day. So we have the All Trails app on our phone, and it just like finds your location and will tell you the closest trail that allows dogs off leash.
I wish I knew that. All Trails. I got it. I'm going to download it right now.
Oh my gosh. All Trails. And you can choose like, do you have a dog with you? Yes. Do you want them off leash? Yes. And it'll show you all of the trails nearby. And so we do that after we put on all of the tick spray, so we don't get ticks, because ticks are a real thing. And they're...
Man, we were in North Carolina last week, and my daughter had a tick on her. Freaked out. Well, I got it off really quick, but freaked me out.
I got a tick on me that was probably at least half an inch big, and it was the most disgusting. Oh, it's so gross.
Is there tick spray? I didn't know there was such a thing.
I use an essential oil blend that I got from Healing Hollow. It's a Canadian brand, and it works so great. Healing Hollow. It's a local made brand from BC, and she's amazing. And I spray it all over my legs before we go hiking. And then in the afternoon, we've gotten to the habit of forcing ourselves to sit outside and watch the trees or the ground. One time we watched ants moving a leaf across the ground and just like really trying to connect with the earth, because I don't know, when you live in an RV and there's nobody around and you start to just notice things you wouldn't notice if you were around a bunch of people, like the way that sand like dries up on the bottom of a lake bed and it gets all cracky. Like, do you know you can like lift up those pieces and they're just like one big piece? Like, that's so cool. I played with that sand for at least 2 hours trying to figure that out. Like, I think it's a good meditation. So that's kind of our day.
So you're a ponderer, you're a seeker as well, right? You're like someone who's just like pondering existence. And it's such a wonderful thing when you start to be able to remove yourself from the day-to-day BS and actually be able to, and the best quote is like, everyone's so focused on the external journey, but when you finally realize that the true journey is within, right? And the true journey is that internal ponderance of your existence in this reality. It's such an awesome thing that, it's funny. My daughter was 18 months when we went to Banff for the first time, and she sat there and did that exact same thing you just talked about. She sat there and just picked up sand, like, with her hand and let it fall out of her hand for like 30 minutes. And when you said that, it reminded me of that perfectly. And it's just this beauty of, as a child, we're so enamored with the wonderment of the world. And then as an adult, you forget about it. And then hopefully at some point you wake up to, hey, this is awesome. The likelihood of you being alive is
so
zero, infinitesimal, right?
Oh, you're looking at the stars and you're like, oh my gosh, there's planets out there and galaxies and galaxies.
And I came from those things, though. Like, that's another important reality, right? Like, I came from the stars. I came from the dust that once exploded on some star and it turned into my body. That's fucking cool. Right. You're like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Getting into the whole psychedelic conversation, right? Like, everybody these days is diving into that. And it's definitely an interesting area to explore. Not that we need to go down that route, but it's definitely something that allows you to become more aware of the wonderment of and the beauty of the world.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Super interesting. Tell me about your book. So, the Keto Diet.
Tell me
about it.
Yeah, so the keto diet is a 432-page beast of a book that takes people through how to eat keto, what to eat on keto, and really my approach to the ketogenic diet. So it does follow the standard ketogenic diet protocol. However, I've added 4 different, what I like to call fat-fueled profiles in the book. So you could follow the standard one, which is the 5th, and then you have pumped keto, which is more of a protein-based ketogenic diet. And then you have these 3 other fat-fueled profiles that outline how to eat carbs once a week, twice a week, or every night, every day. So then it gives you meal plans for each of these 5 profiles, and it gives you 30 days for each profile. So there's a total of 5 months of planning in there that use all of the recipes throughout the book. And then there's recipes that go through breakfast, drinks, snacks, cooking with pork, chicken, beef, fish, and how to prepare keto foods that are also low inflammatory. And I don't use any dairy in the book. So if you can do dairy, feel free to replace the coconut oil with butter or full fat coconut milk with whipped cream. I just chose to make it dairy free because it's harder to go dairy free than it is to just add the dairy back. So that's kind of the approach.
I do dairy free as well, and I'm so aware of it, right? Because like you, dairy intolerant. Like I think most people are, to be honest. Most adults tend to be dairy intolerant, right? As a child, obviously you can metabolize dairy. As an adult, not so much. But most people, don't get me wrong. I love cheese. I would eat cheese every day if I could. But cheese doesn't like me, right? I like cheese. Cheese doesn't like me, so I avoid it. And so I'm very grateful that you have recipes that are dairy free, because so many keto things are like, hey, eat this cheese and eat this cream cheese and eat this. I'm like, no. Like, I feel like crap on it. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to definitely, I'm going to be going into your book. Now, nuts and avocado are these subjective things that, some people say you can only eat like 8 nuts at a time. Are nuts a big component of your current nutrition plan? I saw you mentioned macadamias.
I don't eat a lot of nuts anymore. I used to eat them, but I find that really trying to heal my gut at this point. That's kind of like the last thing that I have to do right now that I've had for quite some time, is a gut imbalance. So I try to limit my nuts. Very rarely I'll have macadamia nuts. I had them because my husband bought a huge bag of them, and they're so good. And so I grabbed a handful and put it in my lunch. They're so good. Yeah. They're just ridiculous. But I do find when I eat nuts, my skin gets kind of bad and my digestion does suffer a little bit. So it's very slight, but when you're trying to heal your gut, all those little things add up to something. So I don't personally eat them, but I think that they're a great addition to keto. It's just a problem that a lot of people have, is that they eat too many of them and it becomes like just too much.
Yeah. What makes you think you need to heal your gut? Have you actually done some tests, or is it basically just subjective based on how you feel?
Oh, I just know, like, for example, when I drink fizzy water, like anything sparkling, I'll get acne. And when I drink a lot of bone broth, my skin gets better. I suffer from a lot of like nightshade intolerances. Like I can't do tomatoes or peppers because it makes my skin bad. When I eat rice, it makes my scalp itchy. Like not just itchy, but like I've been known in my sleep to like actually make my scalp bleed because I'm itching it when I'm sleeping. It's that itchy. Wow. So all those little signs kind of point to the fact that my gut isn't awesome. And I don't know, when you've had bulimia for like over 20 years, your digestive system definitely needs some TLC. I had candida many, many years ago and recovered from that. So I think everyone could benefit from just loving on their gut and listening to the signs that it sends them.
Luckily, your teeth are still great. People with bulimia often have issues with their teeth. So good for you. That's a plus. Your teeth are beautiful. So
lucky
good
me.
For you. Yeah.
Thank you.
That worked out really well. Leanne, it's been an absolute pleasure. If there's anything else you'd like your listeners or our listeners now to know about where to find you, that would be amazing. And if not, we can just link to it in the show notes. We'll link to your book and your YouTube channel and your podcast, The Healthful Pursuit, because I'm so grateful that you are leading this amazing generation of women and men into a healthful lifestyle.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find my podcast, the Keto Diet Podcast, and Healthful Pursuit is my blog. And I'm actually launching my 12-week ketogenic program for women starting August 20th. You can find more by going to happyketobody.com. And we weren't planning on opening registration again. We launched it in April, but so many people were like, I missed it. You need to do it again. So we're just going to open it up for a couple of days. You can find out more by going to happyketobody.com and just sign up so that you're notified when it launches again.
Man, thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of your trip, your next 6 weeks in getting to New Mexico. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to keep updated. Make sure you keep updating your Instagram so we can follow you.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, so what do you guys think of my conversation with Leanne? She's obviously just a great human being with a great story. And sometimes that's the best way to learn about this stuff, right? Getting into the science is fun. Getting into the science is really important to start to understand. But someone like Leanne, who's just got a great story of overcoming trials and tribulations and being a successful leader in our culture, is really, really great to hear about. And she's got some really great practical insights onto how to live this lifestyle, especially on the road. That sounds so challenging. We all make excuses around time. We all make excuses around knowledge. But really, guys, the best way to get into the trenches is just to live it. And Leanne is doing such an incredible job of that. And honestly, just a great articulate conversation with a great lady. So very, very grateful for Leanne. And guys, if you haven't already checked out Thrive Market, do it now, because this may not last forever. ThriveMarket.com/muscle expert is going to get you 25% off. And other things that I get on there, if you haven't already tried, if you're on a ketogenic diet, their meat is sourced from Chile, and the flavor is just phenomenal. It's got just the right amount of fat for grilling, which I absolutely love. And I think I might even be having a ketogenic/carnivore party tonight. That's going to all be, ultimately catered by Thrive Market, because it's the only place I've been getting my meat lately. Everyone coming over to my house is going to be enjoying a steak or a part of a roast from Thrive Market on my new smoker that I just got from Traeger Grills. And you guys are going to love. I'm going to show you some pictures. If you haven't seen my Instagram, head over to my Instagram. I'm going to start posting pictures of the Traeger Tiger Grill and the meat I'm getting from Thrive, and our carnivore party that we're throwing this week. So if you guys want to scope that out, you can follow all that stuff on my Instagram, which I'm going to be diligently updating for you guys now, because I'm getting a lot of feedback saying, guys, we want to know more about your life. And you guys know I'm a bit of a private guy. I've got a family. I like to keep a lot of stuff off social media, but I'm getting so many requests about people seeing the way that I implement all of this knowledge into my life. So I'm going to be more diligent about letting you guys have a little more of a behind the scenes look at what I actually do every day and how I'm implementing more ketogenic lifestyle into my life, particularly still training hard every day as we prepare Derek Lunsford for the Olympia, and as Danny and I prepare to just look awesome and jacked and ripped at the pool at the Olympia. You guys can get some awesome insights daily on my Instagram, which is ifbbbenpack.com. Huge shout out once again to Leanne Vogel. You can follow her at the Keto Diet, and you can follow Thrive Market. Gosh, so many things to do, but do them all, because you're going to obviously live your greatest life in your greatest body. Take care, guys.
Join us on benpakulski.com to learn the cutting-edge techniques to take control of your body, your brain, and create your greatest life.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Ben Pakulski and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.